What's up, guys and girls?
Yo, what up, what up, what up?
It's good, dog.
What up, everybody, for joining? I appreciate y'all tuning in to Dank Talk with Turk Fiend and Mr. Mac Blunts. What up, TC Coloring, man? I be seeing your food, man. The shit looks delicious. Send me some.
Dude, you're not lying, dude. Those cheesecakes are stupid.
Oh, I am a stupid fan of cheesecake, so I love
I'm
cheesecake. Oh,
not. They look that
first
good.
off, let me say happy birthday to Mrs. Mac Blunts, man. Happy
Happy
birthday,
birthday.
babe.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday. I hope you really enjoyed your birthday. Sorry I had to take off and handle business, but we'll get right back to it after the show.
Yeah, for sure, man. Happy
I want
birthday.
you
Yeah,
to check
yeah.
out my shirt, bro.
757. What does it say?
Farmer.
It's backward. Farmers.
Farmer.
Oh, I got you.
Yeah, man. Fucking farmer, baby.
Where's 757?
That's where I'm at, Virginia.
Oh, nice, nice, nice. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't been up that way in a long time, man. Was
Can't
probably
wait to have you.
was probably 99 the last time I was in Virginia. Like actually doing something, not just like passing through. I've been through a couple times since then, but yeah, I came up 98 and 99. We saw fish at Virginia Beach, and then
Nice.
um I'm trying to think. It was something else. I've done a couple other shows and stuff in and around Virginia, but
We
yeah,
just
it's been
did something in the water. Pharrell put on something in the water for this past weekend. Unfortunately, it was rained out 1.5 days, but I tell you what,
oh,
it was still a
festival.
yeah, it was
Festival.
still a
I got
great turnout though, man. I really enjoyed myself and my family and everybody that came down to support me in something in
you.
the water, man. I appreciate it.
That's dope, man. Yeah. So topic of the day. Topic of the day was gonna be room flips.
I just flipped my blood on the floor. Hold on.
I think I think it was the topic of the day because I think you're in the middle of a room flip, aren't you?
Yeah, man. Straight up, man. We decided to go with resetting the room because, quite frankly, both in myself and Turf Fiend is actually going through a room flip right now, right? So we just harvested. I'm actually finna
Something
spark
like
up
that.
some Flintstone. So cheers to that, Turf Fiend.
Yeah. Didn't want to nap on the blackout truffle in the middle of the podcast, huh?
Out of it out, bro. Out of it out. So I tell you what. So we'll get right into the show, right? Damn, this shit tastes good. Um, so flipping your room. I think flipping your room, in my opinion, is probably one of the most overlooked processes in gardening, right? So in flipping your room, obviously the plants are cut down, the pots are gone. You may have residue or leaf droplets on the floor, but that's okay, right? I like to start from the top to the bottom. Reason why I start from the top to the bottom, probably because I was in the Navy and that's the way they made us clean, right?
Well, I mean,
So,
if you have to clean the ceiling, everything's going to the floor. So you're gonna
right,
have to sweep twice. You're gonna have to do everything twice if you don't, you know?
facts, right. So I start with my fans, bro. Uh, Fans get dusty throughout the growth, sucking up all type of moisture, debris, and all type of nasty whatever's right. Stuff that actually can probably infect your plant. I haven't done any research to see if there are living organisms that get trapped inside of fans and
It's usually
potentially
more
harm your plant, but I'm
it's
sure it
usually
is.
with fans it's usually more like mold,
Right.
mildew, bacteria, things that people don't think of, things like E. coli, like just nasty bacterial stuff that, let's be honest, you don't want on your weed, you know.
Facts. So if you can, man, uh, people, if you can, you're mechanically inclined at all, take the fan apart. Get on the blades, take the blades off, wipe down the blades. I use alcohol and I use bleach as well. I guess I should have said that. That was what I first should have said. Before we even get to cleaning, we got to get our supplies, right?
Yeah, Bleach is good. Everybody loves bleach. Bleach has to be used kind of sparingly in grows. And just because chlorine, when mixed with other stuff like nutrients and stuff like that, can make really, really, really dangerous gas. So you have to be very careful that if you have nutrient buildup, if you have, excess nitrogen or any sort of nutrients, if that stuff mixes with chlorine bleach, you can really hurt yourself. You can really make damage for your lungs. You can really damage your, just make a nasty grow situation. So bleach is one that we want to use, but we got to be real careful where we use it. Stuff like lights, fans, bleach is great, but stuff like tables, lines, anything that nutrients have come in touch with, you want to use more. Like you said, alcohol is a good one, and H2O2, hydrogen peroxide, is another great one. And plus, there's tons of sanitary products now on the market. Sanidate and like all kinds of different, clean. That stuff's pretty much vinegar. Vinegar is another great one if you can tolerate the smell. And once again, if you're using bleach, you don't use anything else on that stuff. So like you don't want to use vinegar and bleach. You don't want to use, you don't really want to mix anything with bleach at all. Bleach has to be really, really, really careful in the room. Yeah,
for sure, man.
Once again, that's the one I'm talking about. Somebody just mentioned Xeritol Sanidate. I think that's the one that is like almost just pure vinegar. I may be wrong on that. They have a couple products that like one is like H2O2. That's another thing that we need to talk about too, real quick, as far as safety and chemicals. Hydrogen peroxide in the quantity and the dilution rate that you buy like at the pharmacy, you're fine. At like a 3% or something like that, you're fine. But if you're using pure or relatively pure, higher test hydrogen peroxide, you got to be real careful with that stuff because it will burn you bad. Not to mention it's an oxidizer. You also don't want to mix that with anything. So what you're using in your grow, and especially now we have industrial sized grows and commercial sized grows where, I've seen not pure hydrogen peroxide, but much higher test stuff, just commonly used. With commercial strength. And I've seen people, dude, I watched a kid, I don't know how he did it, but he had gloves on and ended up getting his whole glove full of like raw dog hydrogen peroxide, burnt the skin off his whole hand. Burnt the skin off his whole hand. And I want to say there's something you can do to neutralize that. I'm not sure off the top of my head. But be very careful if you're using hydrogen peroxide. Definitely. Yeah, PPE. Somebody mentioned PPE.
Yep. Cozy Farm brought up PPE, and I kind of put the cart before the horse. So first thing I do is I gather up all my cleaning materials, i.e. Bleach, hydrogen peroxide, gloves, eyewear, and if you just real just Joe with it, you can get a respirator. I don't use a respirator. Probably should, because who knows 10 years down the line what I've been breathing in for the past 15, 20 years, right? But yeah. So you definitely want to, I definitely advise all PPE coming from the Navy, hospital corpsmen. I'm all about safety and in prevention. So I definitely try to use PPE when necessary. Okay, so I talked about the fans, right? Next thing I move down to the lights, right? People, with most LEDs, we all kind of use the flat LEDs right about now, right? I like to wipe those down. Reason being is because I've noticed that over my grows, they start getting caked up with dust. And I can't see it, but when I wipe it with a sandy wipe and then put my par meter back under it, I have seen about a 10 to 12 increase in PPFD output when I wipe my lights off. So you don't know how much light intensity you're using by you just continue to flip your grow and people don't even think about it, wipe your lights down. So that's something that I actually got from Rasta Jeff. I was listening to one of his podcasts and he mentioned wiping the lights down. So I check, trust but verify, right? So I wiped my lights down, took a reading before and after, and it definitely does increase some par by maintaining the cleanliness of your LED lights.
So that's one where you definitely want to use alcohol. Anything that you've got that's got circuit boards, anything that you've got that's electrical, alcohol is going to be your best bet, just simply because it's going to evaporate clean. If you're using other cleaners, there's usually a lot of water in them. There's usually a lot of moisture in them, and that's one where, like, you really don't want any moisture in your lamps. All the electronic stuff in those things hates moisture, and so alcohol is going to evaporate clean. It's usually, if you use it 90%, within minutes it's gone, like completely gone. That's generally what they use to clean stuff like computer parts and circuit parts and stuff like that. You can almost pour rubbing alcohol on a circuit board. It's going to dry off and everything's good. Whereas
Yeah.
you do the same thing with water, it's ruined. It's completely
Right.
ruined. It's completely ruined. So anything with lights or anything with circuits in your grow, you definitely want to use alcohol, rubbing alcohol, stuff like that.
Agreed. So once I get done with the lights, I start on the walls, right? With the wall solution, I don't know if this is good or not. This is just what I use, but I use the Lysol spray. It has a little orange terpene hint to it, so I love orange terpenes, orange smell. So I spray it down all over the tent. Now I'm at the floor, the bottom, and I'm wiping with my sandy wipes. Got gloves on, I got eye protection on because as you spray, mist comes back and you don't want to get that in your eye, fellas or ladies, growers, shall I say. Um, Once I got the floor clean, the walls clean, I move on to the floor. I do my sweep up. Um, I have a wet vac. Wet vacs definitely come in amazing in the garden. It's made my life 1,000 times easier since I finally invested in a good wet vac. I was spending $15, $20 on a wet vac and wonder why it kept breaking. Well, man,
Yeah.
why?
Yeah.
All right. So once I got my floor clean, bro, now it's time for me to start checking my equipment. So what I do is, all wires. I check all my wires. My wires from my plant, my lights, wires from my extension cords, wires even to my watering system. Right, all wires. Even though that's tubing, I still consider it a wire. Last thing I want to do is come back home or wake up in the middle of the night and there's a fire from my garden because of electrical
Right.
issues. Those are some things that you can mitigate just by going the extra mile and protecting your family and checking your wires. Very important. I want to stress how important checking your wires are.
Yeah, so big one, man. I don't know. I am pretty big on carbon scrubbers, on carbon filters. That's usually a great time to change. Make sure you change the socks on those things. They usually come with like a cover of some sort,
Yes,
depending on
sir.
what your situation is. And then if we're talking about bigger grows, you got stuff like
Yes.
tables,
Yep.
you got stuff like, tubing and HVAC stuff that needs to be scrubbed. It really depends, long and short, it really depends on the
The
size of your
medium
grow.
or yep,
Yeah,
for
because I
sure.
mean, if you're flipping a tent, you can usually do it in a couple hours. If you're flipping a, 10,000 square foot
I can
room or
only
bigger,
imagine. But
you're looking at a day with a group of hands, if everybody's somewhat competent and on top of things. At the very least, a handful of really solid hours with a group. But I mean, it just comes down to, like you said, first of all, kind of making sure you hit everything, but at the same time, getting the things that you don't normally think about. There's always those spots in every one of our grows that, like, we kind of walk past it every now and again and we don't notice it's there. So like I said, pulling down things like carbon filters and completely scrubbing those out. If you've got bigger fans, depending on the size of your grow, getting those and some of the areas that are kind of wonky on those, getting all that stuff scrubbed out and cleaned. Dusters work great too. That's another one of those, like, I don't really think about, but like every
yeah,
time there's something
detrimental.
dusty in the
Yep.
car or anything, the wife's like, use the duster. And I'm like, I don't even, I don't even think about it. But those are killer for like when you've got, like weird lights or weird shaped fans. That's a really good one for getting into all those weird small spots or,
Yeah.
just very
Two
abnormally shaped
bruh.
stuff.
Hey,
Yeah,
you a shoe
toothbrush
head.
works
You a
too.
shoe head.
Once again,
You
then we
know
depend
about
on
the
how
toothbrush.
big we're talking about.
Yeah, for sure. Another thing I like to do now is take inventory of or replace my batteries on all my devices that need it. This is a good time to go ahead and replace your batteries on your PC, your EC meters, your pH meters, your whatever readers that you got that run off battery. It's been what, 4 weeks of veg, 8 weeks of flour, 10 weeks of flour. It's been about 3-4 months. They probably could be changed out. The better you change the batteries out, in my opinion, the better the gadget works. So now would be a good time to change out your batteries on all your equipment.
If I got
Uh,
one, oh my bad.
go ahead.
Clean those damn scissors. And I'm not talking about just the blades. I'm talking about those big, fat, brown boogies of hash that are all over the handles of your scissors. You're not going to smoke that nasty shit because it's mostly skin. Just cut those off, wipe those scissors, soak them in alcohol. You know what I'm talking about. Clean your damn scissors.
Oh man.
Or
Uh,
if you got that pair that's got dings in the blade to the point where you could put a toothpick through, buy some new ones.
or
Guys, scissors are cheap.
hey, I'm cheap. I'll tell the story that I've hung on to some scissors. I had both tips.
Wow.
Yeah, both tips broken on the scissors, so I couldn't. They were still working though. I took them from trim gel to the veg tint, but they still work, man.
Those you
So
got to use for the side of the bud. You can't do the real fine stuff. But I've seen it all. The ones where they're like this, the ones where they're like this at the tips. You know what I'm saying? Like the tips don't match up, and you're still using them. You're still. I'm just knocking the leaves off. We're good, man. It's
yeah,
all. They
for
still
sure.
work. I don't need to buy some new scissors. Guys, they're cheap. They're not that expensive. We're not buying them every single round, but like, get some new scissors, have some fresh scissors, and take care of them scissors. Make sure they're cleaned up. If you got the ones with the spring in them, throw them away. The spring's missing, throw them away. You're sitting there saving them, thinking throw them away. Buy some new
Yeah.
scissors. Like, we've all done it.
Hey,
We've
hey,
all been there. We've
if
all
you
been
can't
like,
if you can't
where's
get
my
some
good
scissors,
scissors?
man, hit up Turk Fiend, man. I'm pretty sure he got some scissors for you, man.
I be
Matter of
throwing
fact,
them away, bro. I love Fisker scissors. Like, they're some of my favorites to trim with. They're the old lady, like, the seriously sharp, like, you stick yourself and you're going to bleed scissors. But they're so good. They're so good for trimming weed. But, like, what happens is eventually, we've all seen it 100 times, that either the point where the two blades goes together completely breaks. I've had that before, but to be fair, I was probably trying to cut like a zip
a
tie or
branch
something,
or a
something
branch.
I shouldn't have
Yeah.
been cut. You know what I'm saying? And then the other thing is they lose the spring. The springs will pop out. Like some of the pairs that have the spring in between the two things, you'll lose the spring. And I've been to commercial grows where they have whole bins of scissors with no springs in them. And I'm like, are people just stealing y'all springs and taking them home for their own scissors? Like, what's going? And why don't y'all
So,
just throw these away?
okay, after I'm done cleaning and everything's put back, I think the most important thing now is to take stock and inventory of your nutrients. If you're growing organically, I think this still can apply to you, right? Um, Nutrients. You don't want to find out week 5 of veg and damn, I don't have any more CalMag. Now you're waiting 2-3 days to get it from Amazon or however you order it, or you can go spend a ton at the local grocery store. But
If you're
yeah, make sure you,
not,
you got what you need for your next round.
yeah,
Once Don't wait till you get low to order it, man. Stay on top of your game. That way your plants thrive and there's no days off for your plants, right?
everybody should be buying their CalMag in 55-gallon drums. It's the one thing you should never run out of. You need to make sure you got all of the CalMag for all of the grows. So buy that CalMag in the biggest quantity you can. Keep the CalMag industry in business. That's the joke, right?
Are you a believer in CalMag? I've had people
It's a
tell me
it's
that.
It's purely a joke, man. CalMag is the duct tape of the weed business. So when you go on, it doesn't matter where Reddit, you go on any forum, you talk to any grower, as soon as somebody posts a picture and it's like, what's wrong with this? Somebody's going to step in and be like, it needs more CalMag. Absolutely.
But matter of
So
fact,
it's
triple
like,
the dosage.
yeah, it
Triple the dosage.
really is one of those things where it's kind of one of a dozen jokes that I've heard a billion times now.
Brains Drop say CalMag is life, bro.
CalMag life. Yeah, it's the duct tape of the weed business. It literally is. It's like, you know, one of the most exhausting things that I've ever done in my life is go spend time on Reddit. Just because as much as I love to be there, it's just so many times it's like, what's wrong with my plant? Here's one leaf. What's wrong with my plant? Like, look at this one little spot. What is this? Am I doing it wrong? And it's like, I get everybody's new and everybody has questions. It's beautiful that that place exists, that people can ask that. But the reality is, if you just went and looked through that forum, whatever that subreddit is, you would see that question gets asked 100 times.
Yeah.
There's 100,000 times where somebody's like, this is what a male plant looks like, and this is what a female plant looks like. And inevitably, you're going to get it 100 times a day where somebody's like, is this a male or a female?
I don't know
And it's just
if you remember the
it's just
forum.
a wide shot.
I think it was called Roll It Up, if I'm not mistaken. That forum taught me how to roll a joint called the Knee Trembler, or in the Saturday Night Special. They had a page where you can click, and it had like pictures step by step of like 3D origami type shit, not people's hands, but origami of how to roll a Saturday Night Special and Knee Trembler. Man, I miss the forums, bro. Facebook is dope because you kind of get live interactions, but and the forums was where it's at back in the days, bro.
Yeah, Facebook is too emotional. And then the only problem with Reddit, and like Reddit is really cool because Reddit actually has a ton of like really good subreddits. But like the problem is that there's so much like, I just think it's lazy. It's like, for me, when I hopped on a forum, my goal first was to read as much as I could. There were forums where I never posted anything because I was trying to take in, and I didn't feel like anything that I was contributing at the time was enough to say something to somebody, you know, like to make a post about it, which in hindsight I probably should have. But back then there was a lot of like, if you don't know what you're talking about, keep your mouth shut. And now we can go in a lot of forums. I always joke, it's experts telling experts how to be experts. Nobody there is there to learn. Everybody there knows every fucking thing. And it's just like, what are we here for? Like, what are we, you know? If everybody knows everything, what are we doing? Is this just a dick waving contest? You know,
in my opinion, bro, and I'm new to this, you know, I've been growing for a while, but I've only been good for so long, just to be honest, right? But I don't think there's a right way of growing, bro. I think that as long as your plant's happy and it's producing good medicine for you or your people, like, I think you're a great grower. You know what I mean? Like, I hate getting into this pissing. We're trying to monetize, so cock swing contest.
We're past it. That's just the first 5 minutes, or since it's the first minute or something. Like, you can swear. As far as I can tell, we can swear. Yeah, I think we made it. I'm the one that always messes up every single time. Every time I mess up because we get 30 seconds in and I'm like, fuck, and then I'm like, oh, it's gone. We're done.
But yeah, I mean, coming from somebody that's been in the game as long as you, bro, is my way of thinking lazy man growing? Or, I mean, because I feel like I grow phenomenal medicine, you know?
Oh, no, you nailed it, man.
I
Like,
mean,
there's
I read a lot, but...
Yeah, for every person out there that's growing weed, there's a different way to grow weed. And the only ones that aren't right are the ones that don't produce good weed, you know?
Right.
And it's like, I know so many people that have run their first plant, run their first couple of years of plants, and never really get anything that's worth smoking. You know, like, they grow something, but it ain't really all that, you know. I always say it's really easy to grow weed, but it's really tough to grow weed people want to smoke. And, like, it's just, it's, you know, there's a little bit of, like, anybody can throw a plant in a pot, and if you got good genetics, you might get lucky. But there's a lot of people, man, I've known people that are in their second and third year and are still just kind of growing larf and just, you know, they don't understand pruning. They don't understand some of these things that are, you know, one of the biggest mistakes that I see are people getting too attached to their plants to the point where they can't prune them, they can't top them, they can't do anything, and they think they just have to absolutely baby every minute. And it's like, you got to get used to killing plants. You got to get used to chopping leaves off. You got to
know what it looks like in order to fix it. You know, you got to go through it. And people hit me up all the time, and they ask me, you know, they never grown before, but they follow me and they like it. And I tell them all the time, man, the easiest thing to do is to get to doing. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying? Like, if you never put that seed in the ground, I guarantee you'll never reach what you're trying to do.
yeah. Dirty
Whether
hands.
it be to feed the whole Southwest Houston or whether it just to be to keep you some medicine around, you got to plant that seed.
Yeah,
You know,
dirty
I
hands
tell
are
you
gonna
one
teach
thing
you more.
about growing too that I've learned since I've taken on a career in it. Right, it's very therapeutic for me, bro. Like, I enjoy being in my. I don't think if I had my garden, my transition from the military wouldn't have been as easy. I don't believe. You know, if I didn't have a place to go run to, vent to, you know, it means a lot, bro. You know, so I would advise I'm pretty sure everybody watching here are growers, and if someone that follows me is not a grower, hit me up, man. I would love to teach you. I would love to talk to you about growing.
Yeah, dirty hands are gonna teach you more than all the forums on the
But
internet. So getting in there, doing it, like at the same time, the problem with the internet as far as a source of information is like there's
the
so
plethora.
much information that it can be really overwhelming for people. And so I'm going to be very honest. I learned to grow from Jorge Cervantes' Grow Bible. And when people ask me they're getting into growing, I say, go buy this book, put it by your toilet, read a little bit every time you got to go poop, read a couple pages, and before you know it, you'll be in your own grow seeing problems and you'll know what it was because you've looked at that picture of nitrogen deficiency or, phosphorus toxicity 100 times. So you train your senses. This is exactly what I did. Like when I first got into growing, I literally bought the Jorge Cervantes Grow Bible, put it next to the toilet, and every time I was in the bathroom for more than a minute, I'd open the book to a random page and just read something. Just read a page or two. You don't have to read it cover to cover. Just treat it like a dictionary. And so you literally just pick a page and read, pick a page and read. And
So
before you know it, yeah, everything, before you know it, you've trained your brain and you're in your grow and you see something go wrong with your plant and you're like, oh, I know what that is. Like it's.
so two things. I can't count to you. So in the age of everything being digital, I was able to download for free, might I add, the Jorge Cervantes Marijuana Grow Bible in PDF form. And I can't count how many countless people I've sent it to that ask me about growing, where can I get started? And they don't start. And I'm like, you got all the information in your hand, right? Like I don't get it, you know?
Yeah, and that's it, dude. I've done the same thing. I've been like, man, that's how I taught myself to grow was that and mistakes. So I got in, I grew, I did it myself. As I made mistakes, I learned. When something didn't go right, I tried to figure out why. And if I really couldn't find an answer, that's when I went to somewhere like the internet,
Yep.
And it's like the thing about that book, and it's not always to say this is the only right way, but it takes out all of the noise. It takes out all of the million other people saying, this, and but this guy said that didn't work and this didn't. It's one way to start. And then once you've figured that out, you can start to branch out into some of the more advanced stuff. You can go deeper on some of the topics that are there, like training and, low stress training, stuff that normally it's kind of common sense, but it's common sense to us because we've been doing it so long.
Right.
So many of the basics of like pruning and just basic maintenance of your plants and like so many of those things, those are really advanced techniques. I know that sounds silly, but for most
Yeah.
growers who understand seed in pot under light, that can be really tough to like get into that habit of like I have to take parts of my plant off. Like that alone is really advanced for a lot of people. But yeah, what we're doing in growing plants is trying to get them to grow in a very specific way.
Yeah.
And we don't need them to grow leaves. We need them to grow leaves so much as they stay alive and healthy, but we're not trying to smoke leaves. So we
Look,
need them to grow
if
buds in very specific ways,
if those books seem hard to you, don't let it fool you, man. Don't let it fool you. I tell you what, a book that I'm working on now is the DJ Short by um
Breeder's
the
Bible
Breeders,
or Breeder
yeah, the
something.
Breeders,
Yeah.
the Breeders Guide. It's a very hard read, but as long as I keep reading it and I research it to read for understanding, you'll do just fine. Another book that I had problems with that I had to read multiple times is Teaming with Microbes. I don't even use microbes anymore. Well, I use Recharge, but I don't use it the way I was using it in Spain. You know, so pick up a book and read it, man. I promise. If I can't stress nothing else, like I'll stress, put the seed in the soil or medium, whatever type of medium you're using, and read, man. Like you gotta love this to be good at it. In my opinion, you gotta yearn for the knowledge. If you don't yearn for that knowledge, talk to OGs like myself, Turk Fiend. You know, people will continue to be lost.
Yeah, there's a lot of it that picking a certain technique, growing with that technique, and getting used to that technique is it, once again, it seems so simple, but like our natural inclination is to always want to change something.
Yep.
So your best bet if you're a new grower is to get in, get as many crops in with your technique. Pick a set of variables, a medium, a nutrient feed, a lighting setup. Pick a set of variables and try to run as many crops with the exact same variables as you can. Then you finally get a good sense of what works, what doesn't work, where you can add other things and where you can add, you know, I've seen so many people go to the grocery store, spend out their entire budget, CO2, you know, all of this stuff, like tons of the most expensive gear, and then still wonder why they're growing shitty weed. And the reality is you're not going to grow your way to great weed. You're not going to pay your way to great weed, right?
Right.
The only way to do it is through repetition, through dialing it in and picking a set of variables, sticking with that set of variables, you know, and it's like the CO2 is the biggest thing that I see people do early on in their grow when they're building their grow and they haven't gotten their grow dialed in. CO2 is literally made for a well dialed in grow. You have to have everything else working perfectly for extra CO2 to be beneficial.
You got to think about it, bro. You're talking, and I understand, the growers on here understand, but the people listening may not know what dialed in is. How about you go into exactly what dialed in is?
Oh, man, it's like with anything, bro. It's like taking your set of variables, figuring out what works, and then making small changes until it's optimized. So it's making small changes in whether it be temperature control, whether it be humidity control, whether it be airflow. You know, pick a set of variables, run them. And I say variables, that includes a strain. So like we all want to run as many strains as we can. We're all guilty of it. We're popping our first round of seeds. I got 27 strains that I've collected, and I'm going to pop one or two of all of them. It's the worst thing you can do. It's the worst thing you can do for trying to figure out what you're doing in growing, because every one of them is going to grow differently. Some are going to grow super tall. Some are going to grow super short. Your best bet is to pick one strain, run that strain, and run that strain for a few rounds until you've gotten that strain perfected to the point where you say, I don't think I could do any better with this strain. Now you can add in another strain. Now you can add in a couple, you know, but it's another mistake that a lot of newer growers make is they want to jump in the deep end with seeds, run as many strains as they possibly can in a 4x4, and then they wonder why one or two of them go okay, and then one or two of them was kind of shitty, and one of them grew super tall and they couldn't control it, and like, it's because every different strain is going to need different parameters, and they're not all going to be happy with the exact same thing on your first swing. So, you know, pick a strain, pick a set of variables, run it a couple of crops, and you'll start to see if you're paying attention and you're you know, alert to what's going on. You're immediately going to start to see gains each room because you're going to get everything. You're going to get the feel for it. You're going to make everything a little bit better.
I think it's just equally important to know what those variables are. What's the temperatures in your garden? What's the recommended temperature that this cultivar excels in? What's the perfect par? What par are you outputting? When's the perfect time to dial your lights in or dial them up or dial them out? You know, the humidity. You have to do some research in this business. You think that the Native Americans or the Africans, they didn't research their land or the crops that they were growing? No, they probably grew them, like Turk said, a bunch of times and found out what works and what doesn't work, and they perfected it. So It's just like any other farmer. It's just like my church says, 757 farmers, right? We're, at the end of the day, we're farmers because we plant, we cultivate, and we harvest. That sounds like a farmer to me, no matter what the media, government, or whoever tries to demonize us cultivators. That's all that we are farmers. So shout out to us.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean, like there's kind of this thing when everybody gets set up and we're trying to go for our first swing at growing, right? And your natural tendency is, I want to try a little bit of everything, you know. And by having just kind of that big control in your grow, no matter what it is, you're going to be able to see what doesn't work easier, right? And that's really what we're trying to, when you say what's dialed in, we're trying to see what works, what doesn't work, where we can make some sort of progressive change, and make the end goal is that better weed is always, what we're looking for. But the truth is, like, if you're running a ton of different strains, it's tough to get anything dialed in because
Right.
just running different strains in the same space, everything has different. If you're running heavy indicas, you're going to want less humidity because if you've got huge, big, chunky nugs, you're going to end up with mold. You're going to end up with,
Right.
bud rot. You're going to end up with all kinds of problems. Yep. So it's like if you're running tall plants and short plants, everything needs different techniques to kind of make it optimized. So if you're running heavy sativas and lankier plants, you want to be able to train them. You want to be able to, whether you're using a trellis or whether you're tying them down or whatever it is, it's so much harder to get, especially when you first start growing, like.
I see it in my vegetarian happen all the time where I have multiple different moms and they're all different heights. And just by them growing next to each other, the ones at the bottom or shorter tend to suffer more because they're farther away from the light intensity, or they may be being shaded. So it's definitely important when you say dial in and try to run all the same genetics or very similar genetics, and you only know that they're similar by running multiple genetics multiple times, right?
Yeah, one of the podcasts I did just recently with somebody else, somebody asked, like they were a newer grower looking for one of their first strains, like what do I recommend that they grow? And, that's a great question because the other tendency is there's so much available as far as genetics that you look out and you go, man, I want to try that. And that sounds good. And you don't really think like, what are these plants going to look like in my garden? How much, so the short answer is, the short answer that I gave him was like, I would avoid landrace stuff. I would avoid super heavy sativa stuff. Like that's the kind of stuff that you generally are going to need some manipulation and some training and some, so if you're really picking your first strain, it's kind of imperative you want to find something that's going to be chunky, right? So even if you don't do all that pruning and all of that kind of stuff that you are going to do to optimize your yield, even if you're not really knowledgeable about that kind of stuff, you're still going to take home some weed that you can smoke, right? The other thing is finding kind of more indica plants, like I said, kind of keeps everything on the shorter end, even if not, the term indica these days is kind of non-defined in the sense that we don't have pure indicas that are just super short squat. They're out there, but that's not usually what people are, so you just want shorter plants, stuff that's going to be kind of more indica dominant. And generally, like I said, just because if you don't have all those training techniques and all those extras, you're still going to pull something that's going to be decent,
I definitely agree with what you're saying, but in my instance, it was a little different. People always say, even to this day, don't start off with DWC. Don't start off with hydroponics. When
I did.
my first grow was a built DWC out of a tote, and well, I tell you this, it wasn't a great grow. You know what I mean? Because there was definitely some learning curves, but it was a grow nonetheless. It was tough. It was tough. And I was just but it kind of counters what I was going to say, because I was also going to say, you want to grow a strand that is easy for growers, for beginners. You want to have that success at the end to make you want to continue to replant another plant, some growers get frustrated, and I know a guy right now that his first grow was outdoor in Virginia. First of all, and it wasn't too happy. He hasn't grown since. He thinks it's a waste of time and money, but you didn't give it a chance. Like,
Yeah, right.
how many people walk up and hit a home run at their first swing, and in the game? Not very
Yeah,
many.
not this one either. Because I've known so many people, man, that yeah, like I said, are going on over a year of growing their own weed, and I still would say aren't growing anything you or I might want to smoke. And it's like I said, the big issue is not learning when you do make mistakes, and then, like you said, not sticking with it long enough to give yourself a chance to succeed. You
Yeah,
know, like at the end of the day, if you only hit once and you don't hit a home run, and now you give up completely, then yeah, let's be honest, man. Like, it's probably not for you.
for
You
sure.
know, it takes an eye to detail. It takes persistence. It takes really getting in there and like being willing to learn, being willing to fail. Like, if you're not willing to fuck it all up and have every plant die on you, because that's going to happen eventually to any great grower. We've all lost a crop. We've all lost a plant.
Bruh,
We've all lost, money. We've all lost weed. Like, it's happened to every one of us. And it's like, that's part of the process. Like, it's part of learning. It's part of growing. It's part of growing weed. Like,
I
you're
tell
going to
you,
lose some plants.
I tell you, my motivation. Um, Miss Mac Blunts, bro. I've been pushing weed on her like a lab rat for quite some time now, right? And unfortunately, she's one of them real ones. She gonna tell me, nah, baby, that ain't it. That ain't, no matter how much I try to convince. I finally got to a point now, speaking of the blacked out truffle, man. So Terp ain't never gave me nothing free to say this. He don't pay me to say this. The blacked out truffle is what he's been saying in all these lives. So the other night, Mrs. McBless and I were chilling, relaxing, medicating, and we pulled out the blacked out truffle. And I look up and it's like not even half the blunt gone, and she like, "What is this? I don't really want no more." She's like, I'm gone. She like, "Wow," and I was like, man, if you paid attention to the shows, he talk about it all the time about the blacked out truffle and how he gets people to call him and message him, "Hey, bro, some of my patients is like, man,
It's
back it
too
up
much.
just a little."
It's too
I'm
much.
in pain, but not that
I've
much.
had multiple growers, people that grow weed hit me up and tell me their customers can't, it's too much, it's too strong, it knocks everybody out.
Yeah,
And I tell people, like, it's not a marketing thing. I'm not trying to, we've put plenty of units in people's hands of seeds with blackout. And it's one of those that, like, consistently people come back and they're like, it makes me go to sleep. It
it's
makes me
most
go to sleep.
it's most very premium, bro. I can't explain it, but it is. It's a very medicated but enjoyable smoke. While you're getting to that point where, because I think there's a. Have you ever got it tested? Has anyone ever seen your results? Because I think the terpenes in there is super high.
It's
Because
myrcene. It's high myrcene. There's no trick. There's no. It's not 38% THC. Most of the tests we've seen have been in the mid to high 20s. Respectable amounts of THC. But the number one terpene in it is almost always heavy myrcene, and it always knocks people out. And it's like, that's what started my like love of myrcene heavy plants, because I love really heavy sedative plants. And so the blackout truffle is just one in dozens of strains that I've worked with, and that I've bred. That's the goal. Like, the goal is to knock people out, and it's just heavy myrcene, a reasonable THC level, maybe some ancillary stuff like some limonene. That's not in the blackout truffle, but in generally speaking in testing. Yeah, and people are going to sleep. Here's the reason.
so
We talk about
my
it all the time.
my bubblegum moss. This is the first time that I've actually got to grow out my bubblegum moss that I created, cure it, smoke it. First opinion of it, it's a great plant. The Afghan genetics combined with the bubblegum really showed out. The terpene on it, I would say, I don't know. I can't even put my finger on it. Like it's very gassy. But it tastes good. I don't know. It's not like it doesn't give you that yuck. It gives you like, again, like how I always say, I really love to enjoy my smoke. So it gives you that really great smoke. The high on it hits you fast. It hits you really fast and it lasts pretty long. I don't have to smoke much of it. Like last night was the night we ended with the bubblegum moss and knocked out.
Yeah,
So I'm really enjoying the bubblegum moss right now. And a lot of people that, how you always have to have people come over and test what you got, right? Special people,
right,
right?
right.
I don't tell them what it is. I just, hey, here, try this, and all of the reviews have been like, out of everything that we tasted, this is the one. And I'm like, bro, all right, I tell you, that's my shit. He was like, nah, bro, that's the one. I'm like, man, you just saying that because you're biased to me. Just like how you always say you don't like to talk about yourself. I feel the same way about my gear. I'm like, man, this is really good. This is really good, man. But am I just being biased because it's me? You know what I mean? Like, I hate that, but who's got the mustard?
Dude, we can. So let me finish one thought. So the situation with the myrcene, the
Hmm.
reason myrcene heavy strains tend to knock people out is because myrcene helps THC cross the blood-brain barrier, which means that it makes your THC more bioavailable, which means, that's been a discussion for years. Eat a mango before you. It doesn't really work like that, but in my opinion, non-cannabis derived terpenes don't help you as much as it actually being in the strain. But high myrcene levels in your cannabis absolutely makes the THC that's there more bioavailable.
Nice.
Absolutely.
Hell
So
yeah.
high myrcene strains are going to get you higher because you're getting more of that THC that's actually there
Right.
into your system.
Nice. Nice. It's good to know, man. So you said high myrcene plants carry THC throughout the
No,
blood.
it helps THC cross into the blood-brain barrier, which means it actually makes it easier for your body to absorb and more of that. So when you take anything in, right, whether it's drugs, whether it's weed, only so much of that is getting to your system, right? Only so much of that enters your bloodstream and gets you high. So with high myrcene strains, the myrcene actually helps more of that THC get into your system easier and makes it essentially easier for your body to absorb.
Nice. Gotcha. That's good information, man.
What's myrcene smell like in flower before cure? Or blackout truffle?
What's it smell like in flower before cure? So, he's about the blacked out truffle? Blackout truffle?
Oh, so as far as myrcene, I think he's talking about myrcene. So myrcene tends to be your banana heavy strains. It tends to be a kind of woody, pulpy thing. Sometimes a black pepper type of thing. Usually, they say almost like maybe a hickory sandalwood sometimes, and more
I might
banana
have.
things sometimes. Yeah, and so banana strains tend to be really heavy in myrcene. For my stuff, the blackout truffle, the terp drip. Usually heavy cushes tend to be, heavy in myrcene. Yeah, actually, myrcene for years and years was what they tested, what they trained drug dogs with, because, excuse me, almost every strain contains some level of myrcene, and so it was an easy thing for them to use to get drug dogs to alert onto weed when they smelled it. They would actually use some sort of myrcene, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, like Oregon Kids Banana OG. There's another cut called Banana Kush. Any of your heavy indicas and any of your heavy like Kushes. So Bubba Kush is another good one that's probably going to test really high in myrcene. Um, I use the Long Valley Royal Kush, the Afgu. Any of your Afghans, any of your landrace Kushes, or anything heavy indica is usually going to be very heavy myrcene. And for years, we didn't really understand that generally when you think of indica strains, in the sense that it gets you high, makes you lazy, makes you, kind of lethargic, those strains tend to, the reason we call them indicas and the reason they have that effect is because of the heavier myrcene levels, whereas sativas generally tend to have lower myrcene levels. Generally speaking, the stoniest. What's that?
Starting to fall in love with myrcene and limonene as well too, though. But myrcene is definitely high up there. I think you can find myrcene in I want to say mangoes too, man. Matter of fact, I don't remember who told me this. It may have been you, but
black peppercorns too.
Eating mangoes and smoking cannabis, the mango is supposed to help, like you were saying, carry over the THC to be able to be absorbed into the body more. I got to Google it, but someone was talking about that. It was on a podcast.
Hops, black peppers, black peppercorns, mangoes are all high in myrcene.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I tell you to eat mangoes, is because mangoes are high, very, very high in myrcene. And hypothetically, it's supposed to help the THC cross the blood-brain barrier, and it makes it more bioavailable for your body to absorb. That's why everybody goes to sleep. What's that?
What's the love mangoes?
No clue.
What are love mangoes?
I do want to address one thing that Tight Nets. I saw Tight Nets ask a question earlier. Asked if I had gone to Vernon Downs in '98. Yes, I did. I did most of the '98 East Coast tour. We were talking about earlier. We were talking about the last time earlier in the pod. We were talking about the last times that I was in Virginia. With '98, '99, I did Fish concerts all the way up to Maine. So
any cool weed stories in Virginia?
What's that?
Any cool weed stories in Virginia?
Oh yeah, I got a couple of good stories. I don't know about weed stories, but I got a good story. So like, man. My second trip to Virginia Beach. The first trip was '98, and they played a Grateful Dead song, which at the time was a big deal because they had never really played in 20-some years. Hadn't played the Dead. It was the day Jerry had died, so '98 they played Terrapin Station for the encore. '99 I was there with a chick that yeah, it just shouldn't have been around. It didn't end well. We weren't, she was it's just, anyway, took a little too much, had a little bit of a good time, got out of the venue. Earlier in the day, I had wrecked the car. I had shifted lanes and didn't look because we were in a fight, and I got rear-ended. So, like, this cop was trying to go through our car, and we had stuff you shouldn't have. And he was, like, trying to get a little – and we were like, no, you can't search our car. We don't give consent, yada, yada, yada. And then I turned back around, and he was just, like, in my cooler. And I was like, bro, I told you no. Like, you asked – as you have to, and I said no, and we're good. Wrap it up, give me my ticket, and let's get out of here.
Yeah.
So I get out of the show that night, had taken a little too much of whatever, and couldn't find the car. We had gotten to the show late. I didn't remember where I parked. All we did was like screeched into a parking space and ran into the venue, dosed up, and by the time we got out, I couldn't see straight. I didn't remember where the car was. I was losing my mind. So we spent like an hour, maybe longer, looking, just wandering rows and just. So finally, I'm losing. I'm like on the verge of breaking down and just crying in the middle of the parking lot and just giving up. Like, I'm literally at my wit's end. I've seen at this point things in my head that I couldn't describe to you, the depths of fear and just the horror, and it was so bad. And finally this guy comes up to me, and he could just tell. And he's like closing his car up, and they had been selling something, sandwiches or something. And he's just like, come sit down, man. Just sit down. I got you. And so I sit down, homie gives me something to eat. Finally, I'm able to walk up to like these employees that were like just hanging out on a golf cart. And I just walk up and I'm like, listen, guys, man, I'm having a rough night. Can't find the car. Don't remember where we put the car, to be honest with you. Like, we got here really late and just kind of ran in. And so they take a description of the car, and they're like, just stand right here. And so they zip off. And maybe 5 minutes later, They come pulling back up, and they're like, bro, you could throw a rock right now and hit your car. It's like 2 rows right there. It's just right there. You're really not that far. And, bro, it was just the worst 2 or 3 days. It was just one of those where you just, like, really deeply consider the life choices you've made up to that moment and what got you into this situation, and definitely how to avoid. And I can't say it was my last bad trip, but it was one of the worst I've ever had. And it was one of those where you just go, God damn it, man.
So I'll tell you about a Virginia story of mine. So this is my first.
We got 4 minutes, just a heads up.
Okay,
but go ahead.
No, all right, quick story. So first time the wife and I are on medications, and our first time, so we brew it up in a tea and we drink it, right? I've always thought people were lying about seeing things, and I didn't believe it, right? Boom. We're sitting on the couch. My dog's upstairs. Mind you, I got a big American Bully. He comes downstairs. He stands in front of us, right? His face just starts swelling unimaginably. Now, my dog has allergies. I have to give him Benadryl sometimes, so I know he trips out, right? So what made me flip out is because why the fuck is my wife seeing the same shit? So now I'm like, all right, but she's on the phone with a girl. So I'm like, I know we're not tripping because we can't trip and see the same shit. You know what I mean? So we get up, we trying to pack the dog. We trying to pack the dog in the car, take him to the vet, right? Because we fucking tripping now. And her homegirl's like, y'all, chill out. Sit down. Y'all tripping. Talk about it. Think about what's going on. So we sit down, we chill out, we look. We like, yo, we tripping. We tripping. Like, we finna go to jail out here in Virginia, bro. Like, chill out now.
Yeah, man, I've had a few that got a little sideways, to be honest with you, but like it's the path of any good traveler. Sometimes there's bumps in the road.
Bro, Yeah, man. But yeah. Anyway, times.
We'll wrap it up, Mag. That was a good one, buddy. I appreciate it. What you got going on, man?
Man, you guys can follow me at YouTube, Mr. Mac Blunts. Follow my Patreon, same name, Mr. Mac Blunts. Follow me on Twitch at Mr. Mac Blunts. Play with me on Call of Duty. Message me for my gamer tag. We got the King Neptune coming out. Shout out to Supply Chain, man. We still working on that. That shit's lovely. It's in a good space right now. So be on the lookout for that, you guys.
Awesome. We got some big announcements coming up. I'm getting caught up on all the work stuff this week. So everybody's going to get mystery bags that have been waiting. And there's a couple things that after surgery, I was down for like a month, 6 weeks, and it just pushed me behind. So I'm getting caught up this week on everything. And then we got a couple big announcements. I don't really want to say anything yet because as soon as I do, I'm going to see 8 other pages ripping my idea off. Not that it's the most original idea ever, but it's just, I don't see anybody else really doing it. And so we got a couple big things, and we're going to do a big spring mystery bag situation. Those are coming up in the next couple weeks. Stay tuned, www.terpfiend.com, TERPFI3ND.com. Also check me at Instagram at terpfiend, TERPFI3ND. And there you can find my link tree with all my YouTube and all my other various places where you can listen to me ramble and rant about weed and its various accoutrements. So thank you guys. I appreciate it, man. Wow. See you next week, dog.
Shout out, man.